right? So they started putting it in the bread, in the flour. So when you mix your flour, when you buy bread, right, it had iodine in it. They say within the state of 5 years, all the goiters disappeared. So that tells you one thing, that if you have a goiter and you started taking extra doses of iodine, it will melt the goiter. It will take a long time, it will take 3-4 years, but it will melt.
Right.
And that was 100 and something years ago. In the 1980s, the Bakers Association in the United States decided that it's cheaper to put bromide in the bread. So they take the iodine out. They take the iodine out of the salt that they were putting. You're watching in Trinidad right now, and you're seeing a rise of goiters. Because they have a lot of people that don't eat seafood. Ask them, tell them if they eat sea moss, they say, eek, that's slimy. You understand?
Yeah.
So you begin to see that we are doomed to repeat the mistakes if we don't know history.
Yes, and all of this information, medical information, is in the public domain.
Yes, it's supposed to be. If I could get hold of it, everybody else should be able to get hold of it. Right? So you get somebody come to you and say, well, I have a goiter, and the doctor tells me I have to cut it. You say, what for? I have a whole set of herbs that will melt that. Iodine is melted. Who are you going to cut it for? And mash up your whole self, because when you cut it, you probably cut off half the thyroid, and then you have another problem going. So you run this thing all the time when you make these mistakes. So when you do that, you do the same thing. So I started and I say, I bet if I dig up on prostate, that it ain't what I think it is. So when I sat back and I thought about when I was young and the characters that used to lie around my old man shop, I said, but none of them had prostates, and them was real macho men. You understand? So I started digging. And then I found this book, and she was talking about prostate, and she said, before World War II, there were no swollen prostates. With the introduction of DDT, which was a chemical that was developed during World War II, and they realized that you could spray it to kill mosquitoes, but it was a hormone-altering drug. That's how it kills the mosquito. It alters the hormones and things inside the mosquito, mashes up the nervous system, and kills it. See, they were building the Panama Canal, right? They start using DDT to kill the mosquitoes. Within 3 or 4 years, they started having prostate problems. It was introduced in Europe. The Swedish government, being ever progressive in terms of the health of the nation, picked that up very quickly. They called it an epidemic, because 1 in 100 or 2 in 100 or 3 in 100 is an epidemic. So very quickly they isolated what it was. Right. You come now, about 70 years later, and if you ask anybody who have prostate problems, what causes prostate problems, they'll tell you that is what old men does get. Right? So, let us start with prostate, because it is a fascinating study. PSA, that's what the doctors send you for, measurement. Measure your PSA and see what happens with your prostate. It's a protein. It's called, in technical language, A3.3 KD. It's a serine protease, which means when it is involved in the body, it is involved with the coagulation of the blood. In other words, if it goes high, it starts to coagulate the blood. So you have another thing as to why some people might have coagulation of the blood in their feet. You hear a man tell you, I had a blood clot. All of a sudden, and they don't know why. And they might be treating him for a high PSA. You understand? Because the PSA high. So that PSA is given off, that the prostate-specific antigen, that protein, right, is produced by a fungus in the prostate called the Ascomycete fungus. It belongs to one of the largest groups of pathogenic fungi. Right? You running with me? The thing about it is that we are born with that fungus in the prostate.
So all men have that one?
Yes, yes. Now, what that fungus does inside there, under control, right, is that when the man reaches puberty and he ejaculates, the ejaculate is very, very thick. It's like it comes out like a drop of mud. Boom! But just before it comes out, there's a thing called precum. There's a thin liquid that comes out. That comes out of the prostate.
Okay.
Right? And what that is to do is that when that lump of thing comes up from the testicles and it go boom in that little space, that liquid is there. And what that liquid does is it thins it out.
Okay.
Which then allows the sperm to swim up the canal. Right? Long ago it was all 180 million of them trying to get up the road. Now you're lucky if you have 10 million. Right? We want to have a discussion as to why this drastic decrease over 25 years that nobody talks about, or they knock the figures down when they talk about it.
And that will affect fertility rates?
Of course, and it is affecting fertility rates. Right? So, PSA, contrary to popular opinion, is not limited to men.
Okay.
Because you could have that same fungi in breast cancer.
Okay.
You could have that same fungi in ovarian cancer. You could have that same fungi in pancreatic cancer. You could have that same fungi in colon cancer. And if it starts to run amok, the PSA will go up. So women could have high PSA too. I overload you already?
No, well, I thought that the PSA, prostate specific antigen, was
it was a male thing. No, it could be women thing too. So one of the things, so we talked about iodine. Very interesting. One of the main effects of iodine is that it's a very powerful antifungal. So what do you find down in that region where you have all your producing things?
Reproductive organs.
Or your reproductive organs? You're whipping along today, boy. Your reproductive organs is normally very high in iodine. A woman's breast is normally very high in iodine, right? Nature is not stupid, tries to protect the things that are most useful to the reproduction of the human race, right? In order to facilitate that and to keep that mycete in check, one of the things that happens in the prostate is it absorbs a fair amount of zinc.
Okay.
Has a lot of zinc in it. That is why pumpkin seed is good in helping control the swelling in the prostate, because pumpkin seeds have a lot of zinc. Long ago, when you go in the kitchen, your mother used to cook in a pot, and if she asked you to wash it, you used to have trouble picking it up because it was very heavy.
Iron pot.
It was an iron pot, cast iron. A lot of things in the thing were cast iron. Frying pan was cast iron, right? When you want to fry something in it, you used to take a little coconut oil and heat it up in it, and then you take a little piece of cloth and you'd rub it in. So you'd make it non-stick for a little while so you could fry egg and take it out easy. You put a little salt in it too. You didn't know that, did you?
No.
Yeah. So you had your cast iron pot. Now your cast iron pot, in order to make the iron malleable, they add zinc to it. Right? So every time you cooked in that iron pot, you used to get a little bit of zinc. So you used to get all your trace minerals in there. So somebody came along 20-25 years ago when they had the aluminium running good, and they realized that you could have iron. Instead of iron pot, you could have a zinc aluminium pot. Just like the iron pot, almost the same color as the iron pot, but very light. Cooking very quick, you know. So everybody start buying aluminium pots, not understanding that you've now lost your protection against the fungi, and You're also taking in a large amount of aluminium, which mashing up your brain and your sweat glands and all kinds of craziness. Right? So you realize what we're doing is we're going along, shoops, shoops, and we're watching each mistake. The other thing that you have to bear in mind is that in the late 1800s, in America, the amount of sugar eaten by a person over a year was how much? 1.4 pounds. Right? Nowadays, they'll eat a pound in a week or 2 weeks.
As if they're not drinking any soft drink. They're drinking soft drink, that's one day.
Now, one thing that the fungi thrives on is sugar.
Yes.
They love sugar. That is their pièce de resistance when it comes to food.
Yes. So all these sugar cravings,
Right.
you know you have fungi.
So the other thing about it with that, I'm showing you how a cacophony of modern inventions is leading us to that kind of sickness. The other thing that you have is that had a guy called Fleming back in the 1930s. And we used to have all these little infectious diseases and it used to kill people. And he was playing around one day with the residual waste from a fungi, right? Called penicillin, no? And when he dropped it in the petri dish, he found that it killed the bacteria that was causing the problem. So he played with it until he got it right, and then he announced it to the world. And somebody said to him, well, you should patent that, you know. Now listen to how nice a guy he was. He says, no, I will not patent that. I will give it to humanity. Can you imagine if he patented that? His family would have owned about half the world right now.
Yes.
So they're good people. They're good people. Everybody don't rush to make things to thing. So he gave it to them, and it started off the whole antibiotic revolution. All right? But very quickly they found out that when you give the human being antibiotics, it goes in there and it kills the bacteria that is attacking the person, so they get better. But we now realize that the whole your gut is filled with bacteria necessary for your immune system, for digesting your food, for changing some of your food into vitamin Bs and all kinds of things, and you're killing that out too. So when they first started giving out antibiotics, there was a thing after, take some probiotics. That was the rule. And after a few years, like everything else, everybody forget to tell about the thing, about the probiotics. So again, you're saying, when you read the history of the thing and what used to be done, you realize that all that dropped by the wayside.
But they changed these practices because it was better for business.
Convenience.
Okay.
Doctor, I tell you, well, look, when you come back and take these probiotics, what's that for? That's to replace, because then he'll be telling you that the antibiotics curing you, but it also killing you. Right? On top of that, people who grow in, the United States decided that it was going to be the breadbasket of the world after World War II. So they started finding ways now to factory farm animals, how to put them in a shed and feed them and then kill them. So chickens stop running on the range to eat. Cows they put in a pen, and the cows don't eat grass anymore, they eat grain. And you have to process the grain. And incidentally, it was that processing of the grain and the taking out of the oil that started hydrogenated oil in mass. Greed again, greed.
So just from prostate, we've seen a whole host of connections.
Yes, so we're doing all the connections. You know, you're connecting all the things. We never do that. We sit down and we say, oh God, I have diabetes. Oh God, I have prostate problem. Oh God, I have heart problems. And don't understand, most of them come out of the same thing. So while they put them in a pen, they put a set of chickens in a pen, and the chickens get a little infection, they find out that if they put antibiotics in the water and the chicken drink it, they get rid of the infection. And then somebody noticed, wait now,
They get fat.
they get fat. They get fat, right? And you check the price of antibiotics, it's cheap. It's cheaper than the feed. So what does he start doing? Putting a little antibiotics in the water every day.
But you know, that comes to mind. You're walking around and you see a lot of, especially women, young women, who are beginning to put on a lot of weight. And you're wondering if it's the antibiotics that they're taking on a regular basis that's responsible.
Of course you have to worry. You have to wonder.
Yeah.
Because whenever you start having fungi in your system, one of the signs is you just put on weight. And you don't put on a solid weight.
Yeah.
You just put on a kind of, let's call it a bloaty weight, thing hanging all over the place.
Okay.
Right? So you look at a person like that and almost immediately you know that they have yeast problems.
Yeah.
And therefore if they have yeast problem, by the time they reach 17 or 18 they will have polycystic ovaries.
Right.
Give them another 5 years, they will have endometriosis or fibroids.
Right.
Because all of those are progressions.
And all of those will also affect the fertility.
Yes. Because what does it do? When you have fungi, and we'll talk about this a little bit more as we get a little deeper, when you have fungi, the only thing that makes lumps in your body is a fungus.
Right.
And when that makes its little house, and the outside layer of that house is made of chitin, which is the shell of a crab, it's the same thing it uses, but it uses it and it puts it in a flexible thing, so you think. But try to penetrate it. That's one of the reasons why it's very difficult to affect cancer. Because the cancer is a symbiotic relationship. The virus that causes cancer makes an arrangement with the fungi, and they form a partnership and they go into business.
So the fungi creates the protective coating for the cancer.
No, the fungus creates the protective coating and the cancer. Now, let's digress on that a little bit. When you get cancer, and you go to the doctor and he says, hey, you have cancer. We have to treat you. We're going to give you chemotherapy and radiation, which will kill it. So they get this powerful poisonous thing. They put it in the blood, which means it's going to find a way to get in to the fungus house to kill it. As soon as it gets in there and it starts working, the cancer says, whoa! Attack! Let me get out of here. And they change. They change from an ordinary fungus into what is called a hyphated fungus, which is a fungi now armed with a screw. And what does it proceed to do? Get out of the same jail that it make with the thing in order to protect itself. And it screws out the skin. And it goes into the lymph system. And it goes looking for somewhere else to set up house.
And that is what the doctors refer to as metastasizing.
Yes. So the thing that metastasizes cancer 90-something% of the time is chemotherapy.
Okay.
So it's supposed to kill, but it does also double kill.
Right.
Because it kills, and you take the lump out and you give them chemo, and you say, all right, you're good. But everybody's gone out. The settlers have gone out to explore new lands. So 3 years later, they come back and they say, I ain't feeling good. And you say, oh, the cancer spread to the lungs and to the liver and to this. You say, but I had just a little spot, you know. That's it.
All right. And I think you had said that cancers only exist in its acid environment.
Acid environment.
So if the body is very acid.
Oh, okay. And most of the time it's very acid. Why is it very acid? Why is most people very acid nowadays?
The amount of meat there is.
The amount of meat. What else? What is the thing that causes the most acidity in the system?
Sugar.
You understand how we keep piling all the mistakes one upon the other?
So meat and
Now,
sugar, yeah.
what will cause the body to go alkaline?
Vegetables.
Vegetables.
Yes.
Right?
Real leafy vegetables.
So when the madam in the house cook and she drop it in front of the husband, where's all this other rabbit food you give me here? Right? I don't like that. Bring some sausage and thing for me.
Processed meat.
Yes. Right?
Yeah, you sure what it is?
Yeah, you sure it is. It could be anything. and you take out all the vegetables, which have most of the vitamins and minerals and things like that, because the meat that you're eating have plenty of antibiotics in it. On top of that, they find out that steroids, just get it fat too. I'm living in the United States, and I'm coming up the highway one day and I'm listening to public radio. And they had this guy on. who have a cattle farm. So he telling the announcer, he says, well, a few months before I send them to market, I just go down the road and I just buy a little estrogen pill.
Yeah.
He said, and I just clip it in the ears.
Right.
He said this cost me about 50 cents or $1 for the pill.
Yeah.
Right?
And the cow get fat.
She said, well, I said, well, I just fatten the cow. And I just get an extra 100 pounds. Right? She said, well, how much a pound you just get for the cow? He said, well, I might get 25 cents a pound. You know what I mean? She says, well, that is only, you know, $25 or $50 a cow.
Yeah.
You know. He said, I agree with you. He said, but when you have 20,000 cows to sell,
Yeah.
that make a difference of $500,000.
Yeah.
Right? He says, so I'll lay out $5,000 and I get $500,000. He says, good business.
Yeah.
He said, nobody ain't worrying about the ethics of the situation
Yeah.
or what our meat will do to you.
You know,
Right?
they don't care about that.
Okay?
And then the same man who's doing that turn around eating the same beef.
No. He was very specific. That is what kind of brought my attention to what he was saying. So she said, well, how you think about eating that? He said, well, the very funny thing, he said, I'll tell you straight, I don't eat the beef I grow. She said, well, what you just eat? He said, I have a guy down the road, have an organic farm, we just buy the beef.
Oh, yes.
You know, and that's the whole thing. So we go to the grocery, we buy meat with steroids and antibiotics and all kind of thing. Although I noticed certain groceries around saying now our chicken has no antibiotics and no steroids.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for them to say and it's free range, which means they're eating grass and thing, but it means they're still in the pen, but they're eating no antibiotics and they're eating no steroids. The question that I now ask, if that chicken is coming to fruition in 6 or 7 weeks like it's doing, what have they found that they could put in the thing that is not antibiotics and not steroids but will get the chicken fat?
I don't trust that.
That's what I'm saying. The final analysis is the bottom line.
Yes.
And the bottom line is money.
So if I tell you a thing, you're going to rush and buy it, and I will charge you $2 more because it don't have this and it don't have that. You know.
And we don't stop to ask, if it don't have this and it don't have that, what does it have? For instance, in the States, you have a cow. And they say, well, when you put in the estrogen pill, the cow does get fat.
Yeah.
So the cow have too much fat. So they say saturated fat is bad for you.
Right.
And there's a big question mark when you start to look at the science of that. But we ain't talking about that today. Right?
Because, coconut oil is saturated.
So yeah, saturated fat. So the fellas and them say, well, we had to find something that we could feed the cow, where the cow will put on weight. Now, you ever see a guy come on stage who's a bodybuilder, and he have muscles that look absolutely ridiculous? Because when you do so, his whole body spread out, and you have a little head on top of it, right?
I've seen a few pictures like that.
That's steroids.
Yeah.
Right? So, what can we do?
And they can raise their hand over the shoulder.
So they discovered a product called Zlimax.
Zlimax.
Z-L-I-M-A-X.
Zlimax.
Zlimax. Right? When you feed the cow Zlimax, the cow does put on plenty muscle. So when your cow ready to go to the abattoir, it's like a weightlifter, right?
I've seen some cows like that,
Yeah?
Yeah.
You know what's the problem? By the time a lot of the cows reach the abattoir, they can't walk.
Yeah.
They're building big muscle, but the muscle weak.
Yeah, they don't even need to muscle out of them.
So what they do is just drag them in.
Yeah.
They can't walk them in, so they just have a rope and drag them in to where they're going to kill them.
Well, now, when we look at what the meat industry is adding to the meat in order to make a profit, and then we can make the link between that meat and a lot of diseases.
Of course.
The question that arises is that why doesn't governments or ministries of health do something about it.
That is a very connected discussion. That's a strange word to use, eh? A very connected discussion.
Okay.
Probably the same person that own the companies that producing the corn and the grain is the same person who own the cows and the chicken, right? And is the same person who own the antibiotics,
Okay. And financing the politician.
right? And they own the newspaper too. So the only way you could get this kind of information is you had to be digging in the research papers. You had to be digging underneath. Still have fellas doing research and they just print the research, and if you know where to find it, and then sit down and put it together. So if you go, let's say for instance you have a high PSA and you go to the doctor, and the doctor gives you Nizoral to lower the PSA. The only reason why the PSA goes down is because it lowers your testosterone in your body. So I'm really going into another aspect of why your prostate is swelling, right? So we said that the prostate swells because your fungus in your prostate begins to develop. Now it has things like certain proteins inside there that just have to keep that under control while you're younger, and it have certain things that the body produces. But one of the things that happens when you reach a certain age is your testosterone begins to go down.